Evening, everybody, and welcome to the Finance Committee meeting of October 4th. It is 6:01 p.m. In attendance from the committee are myself, Tom Connolly, Michael O'Brien, Todd Dargy, Michael Bennett, and Cheryl Zarella Burke. Also in attendance, Sandy Nolan, Linda Cole, and Charlie Seelig, and members of the public. Let's start first. First order of business is acceptance of minutes, but we're gonna defer that to next week. We were shipped the 9/21 minutes instead of the minutes from last week, so we'll defer that to the next meeting and accept those minutes at that time. We've already accepted the minutes of 9/21. Linda or Sandy, any reserve fund transfers or line item transfers?
There are none.
We're good there. Okay. I think what's going to take maybe it'll go quickly. Should we, maybe we do, because I see we have Darlene on and Chief Chavez is here. Maybe we address wage and personnel matters first and then come back to the liaison assignments, if that's okay. Hey, John. So maybe if we do that, maybe let's just initiate first. Sorry, we dove right into the meeting. First thing that I should do is welcome the new member of the Finance Committee, and Todd Dargy, and just tell him how happy we are that he's here just in time to help us with all the budget happiness that we have to embark on now. So welcome, Todd. So glad that you're joining us, and glad that you're officially sworn in and ready to go, because we've got our work cut out for us starting this evening, pretty much. So why don't we move on to wage and personnel matters and come back to the assignments of liaisons, because that'll take us a little bit. I think this may as well. I wanted to first propose, but welcome to get comments from the committee. Linda has shipped us reams of job descriptions this week, which now 52 attachments in one. I didn't think we could do that many attachments in one. I think if the committee agrees, I'll kind of help Linda get all of those organized into a single book so that we have that available as a resource to us and the Board of Selectmen. And I think Linda's next step will be, with Charlie's guidance, to solicit data from the surrounding communities on benchmark jobs, on a sampling of those jobs. Correct, Charlie?
Yes.
Okay. So I think I thought we were looking at about 40 people, and I saw at least 60 job descriptions. So there's probably some overlap, some rationalization that we've got to do there, and then we'll get that body of literature together for everyone, and then get the data collected from the surrounding towns. What else do we need to do in respect of the wage study, Charlie?
Well, I mean, it's two things. As you mentioned, the job descriptions, then at the same time, I'm asking the towns for job descriptions. We're going to get updated pay data as well as we can. Some of it, some towns we may have from 21, but there's no harm in asking for 22. I guess the question is going to be is how much you want to get into the grade and point system of, say, reviewing the job descriptions and saying, well, making it, deciding that instead of simply raising the entire class, not from grade 6 to grade 8 or grade 7 to grade 10 or something like that, but in terms of pay rates, you want to get into the individual job descriptions and regrade them, make recommendations as to, given our grade and point system, what grade these positions should be in.
And my initial impression is we should be guided by the data. If we find we're way off market, systemically off market, then we probably need to take that big bootstrapping approach. If we think not, then perhaps we rely on the job descriptions that reflect material changes in job responsibilities that may mean that we're behind on a few. And alternatively, that we just find from that data that we lack competitiveness on specific roles. So I was assuming we could be guided by that data on how big the job is going to be that we'll have to undertake once we get the data back. Is that reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go get the data and see where our competitive position is, and we'll go from there. Committee members, any suggestions on how we should tackle this? All right, hearing none, let's presume once we get the data, we'll be better informed on how big a task we have in front of us competitively. And of course, moderated by how much we can afford. So we have one, I'm not sure if it comes in as correspondence, but Darlene Regan has a pay matter that we need to discuss. So I thought this probably as logical a place as any for us to initiate that discussion with respect to the driver. So maybe Darlene, if we could just have you kind of describe the situation to us.
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. So at this point, the COA has been running with the van transportation, which is a part of our resources that we are to supply to the community. What we're encountering is 2 people have left at the rate pay of $19.11, which is a step 6 pay grade 2. So in order to find a credible driver these days, it's very difficult to find someone that's has the experience and exposure to senior driving and also respectfulness to the community in which they serve, either children or adults or someone with a disability. So I did find a person. She's a resident of Halifax. She has a CDL license, not required for a COA van driver. However, she is going to be taking the MARTAP training, and she will fulfill those pretty simply because of the fact she has been in this industry for since 2015 actually. So with that, to start her off, currently she's working for Student First, and she wants to leave that position to go to something that doesn't have as many hours. So that led her to our applying for the van position here, where we have 2 people that left at the $19.11 per hour, no benefits. I'm asking if there's a possibility we could offer her to come in at that rate, the same rate. I mean, due to her experience, and I don't really want to lose that opportunity to offer her this position because of what we don't have. She has some flexibility as the days in which she could work. Right now, we have a person that just comes in on a Wednesday, and that's all they can do. And we don't have anyone for the other days for medical appointments and just, simple shopping and, just getting out to even like activities. So the center's just open, so we're going to be offering a once a month activity outside of just to get people out of the home, if they want to. And it will be outside of the community itself in Halifax, maybe to another town. So.
How many hours a week would she work, Darlene?
She'd no more than 20.
So even though you've lost 2 part-timers,
Mm-hmm.
she would remain as a part-timer?
Right, but technically the actual job description itself for van driver varied from 5 to 19 hours. Now, someone who is retired could actually do something like that, but then there's other people that have to have a set, 15 hours per week. Checking around at various COAs and with other directors, there's a variation, but I like to stay within the small rural COA environment that actually does what we do in terms of providing a transportation that is, I call it a concierge service, because basically they're not going through GATRA. A lot of towns have opted for GATRA, and I've been in a town in which they did do that. There's some drawbacks to it. There
Sure.
isn't that one-on-one, service. And in some cases, some of the residents had to wait for their rides to come, which, we know ourselves, if we had to wait after a doctor's appointment, it could be, just a little bit more stressful for us. But anyway, so the town of Halifax is kind enough to still provide that, type of service to the community. However, we also have to think smart about it in terms of the upkeep of our vans as well, and what we actually bring in. So these hours could vary. It could be 5 hours. It could be, up to 19 hours. And that was prior to COVID. It might have been more, but we haven't been open for a whole year in terms of providing certain, we've reduced the hours in our transportation. So going forward, we're hoping that it's going to increase, but for the moment, the 20 hours per week, consistent 20 hours. And then we do have a backup van driver on Wednesday, which would, offset the long distance transportation into possibly Boston, which is amazing, because for $30 a round trip, that's still pretty good. What I try to do is educate our outreach to understand that there are other services out there for people. And I've actually had them look at Old Colony Elder Services, which they get transportation funding. So they were opted, in certain cases where we could not provide, a service like that to Boston, Old Colony did help us. That's what we support. We support one another, a collaborative. That and the independent living centers, which are someone that's working with a person with disabilities. So we all work together, and I try to utilize other resources, money first, and then I look at what we have and what we can offer to the community.
Other members of the committee, questions?
I had a quick question. I noticed on her application, it looked like she put her desired salary of 18 an hour. Were there any other discussions that anyone had with her, like about a salary negotiation, or we're just thinking the 19 based off what the previous people were at?
Yeah, just based off what the previous people were at. She did say 18. She's currently, I think when we talked, she had mentioned to me that she was around $20 an hour. So I said that, I thought maybe we could match that based on the fact that we don't have those two people. But, I believe if we came in around 19, to me, it's $19.11 or $19. I think she has 1881. So it's kind of close to that,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to lose her over that
Especially
amount, but also sometimes it's good to bring someone in a little bit lower, then you have a place for them to go up from there too. Eventually, I'm sure this position would cap out.
Yeah.
But no, that was my only question. I didn't know what other conversations we had with her about compensation.
It's a tough industry right now.
Oh, yeah.
All
Big time.
transportation companies are struggling with this. So when you get someone and that is very familiar with even will go into Boston as well. Not a lot of them will. I had one already applicant that wanted definitely 15 hours a week, and I couldn't say that I could do that for her, maybe, possibly, but she definitely wanted the 15 hours. Well, this one here can fluctuate. It could be, and I explained to her today, it could be 5 hours, it could be up to 20 hours. So, and she was good with that. She doesn't want to go over 20 hours because that was her whole point of leaving her position now. So she's in a financial position where she can do that. So, but, again, no benefits. So.
Yeah. All right, good. Yeah, I am seeing it now where it does says 1881. I didn't see the 81 before. So.
Yeah, it's so close. I looked at it and I thought, well, we're not paying the other, almost $20, $40 between the two.
Right.
And one could probably get up to 8. Well, between the both of them was like 18 hours anyway, between the both of the van drivers that were there.
Sandy, I should know this, but what's the economic difference between what we would quote normally bring her in and
15.
Yeah,
so about $3 an hour?
15 what, Diane?
Oh, okay.
Ellie,
So
I'm sorry.
that's all right. So a grade 2, step 1 is $15.12.
So a little more than $3 an hour.
So
Any other discussion from the committee? So Charlie, would this be a recommendation of the Board of Selectmen, or how would we phrase it?
Separate votes. So the finance
Separate
committee has
votes.
to approve and the board of selectmen needs to approve also.
Okay.
Charlie, you're a little hard to hear. I just wanted to let you know for
Not
some
me,
reason.
yeah.
Yeah, everybody else seems to be clear, but you're coming in kind of soft.
So could I ask for a motion then to support Darlene's position to bring Diane O'Brien in at grade 2, step 6? All in favor of that, say aye. We'll take a roll call vote.
You need a motion and a second first.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask for.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Motion?
Second,
Thank you. Okay, roll call vote. Michael Bennett,
Yes.
Mike O'Brien,
Yes.
Todd Dargy,
Yes.
Cheryl,
yeah,
John,
Yes.
and myself, Tom, as a yes. So we recommend yes, Charlie.
Okay.
thank you.
The selectmen are going to meet on, they're meeting tomorrow, but we didn't have time to get on the agenda for tomorrow. So they're meeting on the 12th, and my plan would be Darlene has an appointment to meet with the board on that night on this and a couple of other matters. So we're hoping to get it done by then.
Darlene, thank you for explaining it all to us. And you're up against a lot of competition for drivers these days. So thanks very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure. Do we have any other wage and personnel matters? I think that was it. We'll get the job survey organized. I think that's it on wage and personnel. Anything else on that?
It's Caesar. I did have a question on the
Yes,
wage and personnel stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know if what's listed on the website right now is the comparable towns. I don't know if Linda still knows what that information is, but do we know what towns we're surveying to compare us to still? Are we using the same set of towns? Are we using a new set?
At this point, it would be the same set of towns. Usually, if anything changes, it might be one town every year, particularly in terms of the demographics change. I haven't spent the time necessary to do that. But, what you see on that list, my bet would be 9 out of the 10 towns would still be on the list, even if I did the necessary research.
All right, I just wanted to double check. That's all.
Yeah, it's because the demographics don't change radically from year to year. I mean, population doesn't change a huge amount. Same thing with the other categories, percent residential valuation, the budget. So.
Yeah, it's a pretty stable list. It appeared to
Thank
be.
you, Charlie and Tom.
Sure. Okay, moving on to reorganization of liaisons. Why don't we tackle that next? If for that, we have a list that Sandy kindly provided of last year's assignments, and they're blocked off. I think it's a good basis for just discussing each of the departments. So perhaps I'll start with that, but then where, as we asked last week, if people have individual preferences for areas that they want to take interest in and really dig into the budget, those are absolutely okay. I think the easiest one first is Cheryl has asked, and also I would suggest that co-liaisons, if there are people that want to learn more about budgets, Charlie, I don't think it would be unacceptable if we had overlapping interests for people to be both looking at the same one. Is that going to be okay?
Yeah, I mean, the liaison isn't a decision maker in this, and as people have pointed out, is not an advocate. The person's an explainer in the sense of they would meet with those departments. And, if there's an article, when you're discussing the budget, something like that, that person can provide more information. One hopes that that person's going a little more in depth on the budget and the articles in talking with these people. So they have a little bit more knowledge and can explain things, but they're not there advocating for the department or board or committee or such. So I don't see a problem with an overlap. Obviously in the long run, everybody needs to be familiar with everything, but the idea is at least there's some more personal connection between the finance committee and that particular department.
And thank you, Charlie, because I should have explained from you. The role of the liaison is really to understand the budget makers' thinking and how they put the budget together, and serve as a bridge to helping us all understand that. Not to advocate, and not a different sort of voting process, but instead to help us all understand what the rationale is behind the budget that's being put forward. So as maybe we go through, starting with Cheryl, because she's done this for a couple of years, has asked that she maintain the liaison relationships which she has had in the past. And those would be Council on Aging, the Building Committee, Civil Defense, Police and Fire, and the dog officer. And actually that Sue Lawless, well, that would change, of course, for Council on Aging. Scott McKenna, Jason Veros for Civil Defense and Fire, and Chavez for Police and the dog officer. Charlie, do we just each, this is only my first time going through it from this position. Do we need to vote on these, or how does that proceed? Just assign them.
No, you just assign them.
Yeah, I mean, usually what happens is people say, yes, no, I'll do this, or I'm interested in this. I don't think there's a formal vote.
Okay, good. So we'll start with the view that Cheryl, you've got that list, and we'll start with that. And then Sandy and Charlie, is there any logic to the blocks that were made historically? I mean, should I go through them in these blocks, or should we do them individually?
Well, I think that Sandy can correct me. I think the idea was more, subject matters, so that, if you're doing the school, you do both schools. You do the elementary school in Silver Lake as an example. If you're doing public works, your highway and water, go on that. So
On that basis, yeah, that makes eminent sense, and it doubles up where it's a single department head who has got a couple of coverage areas. So with that, then why don't we take next the group that was previously supported by Bill McAvoy and Sandy, and I'll list it, and then let's see who's interested in doing it. So the next one would be capital planning, cemetery, and highway, which would be Steve Hayward, recycling, and water. Does that group appeal to anyone?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Okay, so Mike Bennett, thank you very much.
Take it.
Now,
Yeah,
can I
Sandy?
interrupt for 1 minute? Okay,
Yeah.
so currently, Tom, you're on capital planning and Todd is on capital planning. So we could give Mike Bennett the cemetery, highway, recycling, and water. He wouldn't have to do capital planning as well because we already have 2 members, which is sort of Yeah, we already
Good
have two
point.
members.
Okay. I was thinking
All right.
there were different roles, being a member and being a liaison, but I think you're right. We'll get the budget from that. So Todd and I are already on
Right.
the committee, so that makes sense. So Mike we will be adding yours, I think, to out. You list the next, which would be what Lauren Carmichael vacated last year, which would be the Appeals Board, Conservation, the Planning Board, and Halifax and Lights. Planning being, I think, then Conservation being two that usually.
It's also the rest of that. It's also the rest of that list, Tom.
Oh, sorry. Holidays in Halifax, the Housing Authority, Weights and Measures, and Youth and Recreation. That's a much longer list. You're right. All relatively small departments.
Smaller budgets.
I can help out with that. I can do that.
Oh, good, John. Thank you. Okay. Okay, John Smalling has that group. Next one is basically listed, but it's basically the town hall. So Sandy, the accountant, assessors, board of health, building inspector, collector, tax collector, treasurer, board of selectmen, and the town clerk. That one was mine last year. I'll just hold it for now. Next one is the one that Drew McGlincy has just vacated, which would have been Veteran Services, Historic Commission, Historic District, Library, and Parks.
I can take that one.
Who is that?
I can take that one.
I
Michael
was
Brown.
reading. Thanks, Michael. There are really two left. Schools, Halifax and Silver Lake, which, to be truth be told, I was hoping I could take that one this year, and the one that I previously held last year, which was the town hall group. So I think we're down to Todd and I. So Todd, if you have a preference.
No preference. I mean, I think it makes sense if I take the grouping you had last year. Switch.
I think in the past, the town hall ones have generally gone to the newest person on the board. Just kind of get their feet wet because it's a little bit smaller budgets.
Yes, and they're all very gracious about silly questions. I learned that personally.
Good stuff.
Good. Okay, I think we have a plan then. So just a list, and we'll get this all out to everyone. But Todd, you'll have the town hall group, accountant, assessors, board of health, building inspector, tax collector, treasurer, board of selectmen, town clerk. John, you've got the appeals board, conservation, planning board, Halifax and Lights, holidays in Halifax, housing authority, weights and measures, youth and rec. Cheryl, you have council on aging, the building committee, civil defense, police, fire, and dog officer. Mike Bennett, cemetery, highway, recycling, and water. Let's see, Mike O'Brien, veteran services, historic commission, historic district, library, and parks. And I've got Halifax Elementary and Silver Lake Regional.
If I don't have your cell phone number, for our newer members, if you wouldn't mind passing that along, I will update this whole list to the new contacts and put your new contact information in there so that you'll be able to reach out to your different departments, and in turn, if they have questions, they can reach back out to you easily.
So Sandy, do you want to summarize sort of when I think the big resources for this are the spreadsheets that you put into Google Docs so that we begin to understand those budgets. Could you kind of explain to the group what the timeline is on that?
Sure. So usually in November, the end of November, Charlie will send out a packet for people to fill out. We send out budget sheets with that packet for the departments to fill in and send them back. They're usually due the first week in January. And as they come in, I populate the expenditure part of that budget sheet, the FinCom budget. And we then also, Charlie and I will usually talk about the revenues, what we're expecting as far as revenues in. We have certain things that are every year, and then if there's anything, the estimated revenues, what we're expecting for that. The state aid, that gets filled in as we get it. And I'm trying to think of all my tabs on there. And then there's the synopsis page. So I populate each sheet, and it all flows into the synopsis page. And that will give us where we are on the budget. So usually by the probably second or third meeting in January, we have a budget to sit down and discuss, something that shows us about where we are. Actually, Charlie will probably be doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Charlie, but usually he does a back of the envelope on the revenues.
Right.
And we start with that. And he usually presents it to the financial team and the department heads, so everyone has an idea of where about we stand.
There's a small chance I'll try and do a little bit longer future, not just FY23, maybe look a few years in advance to get a better idea of where we're going. But don't hold me to that right now.
And as far as the liaisons go, you actually, I think Tom was asking too, you'll give them the link so that they can look at their individual departments' budgets to see if there's any
Yes,
major changes.
I will, as the budgets come in. Actually, we'll put it on that what was it called? The
OneDrive.
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 OneDrive, that's it. I'll put all the
OneDrive.
budget sheets on the OneDrive as they come in. So you'll be able to access whoever's you want to look at, but you'll be able to access your liaisons' budgets and see what was submitted. Some departments are great, put a lot of background information. I put everything that I get from the department onto that OneDrive. Some departments, it's, the sheet, and that's it. So that's why it's helpful for you to reach out to them and say, okay, so how did you get to this? There's a couple of departments. One thing that I do when the budgets come in, the first thing I will do is look at their payroll budget and make sure that it agrees with the grades and the steps that we have on record, so that we know that they have in the right pay rates, and that they're budgeting for the same number of hours that we have on record. If they're not, what they'll often do, if they want more hours, they'll do an alternate sheet. And if they don't, I suggest that they do an alternate sheet so that they have one so that it's the payroll that as is with the hours and everything as it is right now. And then the next one would be because they want 3 extra hours for someone, or, it's their wish list. So. But the message that Charlie sends out in November is usually, it goes out and it's something that's discussed between the selectmen and the finance committee before he sends out the message. It usually goes out that we need you to level service. Sometimes we have a priority that they'll say, we want you to look at, this area. But lately it's been level service or level fund. Yeah.
We'll probably have that discussion either at the finance committee meeting on Monday, November 22nd, or the board of selectmen meeting on Tuesday, November 23rd, looking at the calendar.
Sandy and Charlie, last year it was open, and it was first time for a couple of us. It was honestly kind of a heavy lift to go from private sector P&Ls and budgets don't look like public sector P&Ls and budgets anyways. And so
Right.
getting right into conversations immediately, there was a lot of sort of translation loss initially. Would it make sense to have available to the committee last year's just spreadsheets before November, just so that we can familiarize ourselves if we choose to with the line items and the amounts and kind of.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll send out the whole spreadsheet again. Usually when I send you something, it has all the tabs there on the bottom
Mm.
because it's always done in Excel, but I'll send it out again so that you can see the FY22. And what I also do when I do the expenditures, I put in the actual spent for 2 years prior, and then what was budgeted for the year that we're in, and then what they're asking for the next year, so. But yeah, I'll send it out again when I get into work tomorrow.
Thanks.
Sandy,
Mhm.
tomorrow I'm gonna talk to you about the sharing of the Excel and the budgets and everything. Because I know last year when we did it, there were 2 different ways to send it. And I'm
Okay.
hoping to have an actual easy, accessible manner or a way for them to access everything this year, as opposed to going back in their emails and clicking on a link and saving it in the browser or something. So tomorrow I'll reach out to you because I did work on something that would make it a lot easier for them.
Sure. I thought last year we actually had it going pretty good because we put them in the OneDrive and everyone could access the OneDrive.
Yeah.
It is. It's
So
still
no
going to be
doubt.
on
In one
OneDrive.
place, but Caesar, certainly I'll speak with you regarding that.
Yeah, it's still going to be on OneDrive. It's still going to be there. I just want to. I'm going to have documentation written up that you can distribute that will actually show them where to get it, not just through an email. Because I know we had a little bit of a sniff last year.
All right.
Thanks. The only suggestion I would make, and maybe Charlie and Sandy, you may echo this with Cheryl. The one big learning I got coming out of this is if there's a question, ask your liaison about something that looks a little hard to explain or something like that, please ask it then, and don't necessarily be overly gracious, because if you don't ask it, it will get asked at town meeting by a citizen. And if there was any sort of controversy or friction at last year's annual town meeting, we could usually trace it back to something that we had already talked about or considered and hadn't fully buttoned up. And we need to have a really good point of view on those things.
Right, we need to have exact.
Usually where things get a little hinky in the AGM.
Mm.
I have to say last year was a difficult year anyways, because we got all the budgets in and then we had to go back and say, all right, we need everyone just to go back to last year, hold the line where you were there, because everything was so tight. Hopefully, and I'm not sure how it's going to come out. Hopefully we'll have a better year this year.
So anything else on liaison assignments? I think we're good there. Okay, any other correspondence, Linda?
Linda, I did
Other
see
than-
Oh,
Sorry.
Charlie?
Go ahead, Charlie.
zoning bylaw committee. We need a representative from the finance committee.
Zoning bylaw committee. Oh, that's new. Okay. What's it entail, Charlie? Maybe just for the groups.
A lot of heavy lifting. I'm sorry about that. So, no good grief, when was this? September of 2020, as part of the annual town meeting, the town voted to, I think it was about 64,000 or something like that.
65,
Yep.
So it wasn't 64,000.
65.
To do a zoning bylaw review. Initially, it was being done through the finance committee, and that was not working out very well because obviously the finance committee is not as knowledgeable about the zoning bylaw as other town officials, boards, or committees. So the board of selectmen said, well, we need to take this project over. We'll get a zoning bylaw review committee formed to meet with Mark Bobrowski, who was the lawyer who the town is contracted with. So we have a member of the selectmen, we have a member of finance, we have 2 from ZBA, which I'm hoping tonight they're meeting upstairs, they'll get that done. 2 from planning, building inspector, and 2 members at large. So we're At this point, the vacancies are the 2 ZBA members and the Finance Committee member. My expectation is that you're going to be meeting several times during the next 2 or 3 months. And you need to be able to spend some time reading the zoning bylaw. I'm not saying understanding every single bit of it, but looking at that and looking at Mark Bobrowski's ideas for reorganizing it, for making changes in it and such. There are parts that are antiquated. The biggest part of the zoning bylaw was done back in the mid-60s. Since then, it's been an incremental basis. You know, if we hit a section and we need to redo it, we do that. What Mark is looking is doing the soup to nuts and saying it's 2021, you need to modernize your zoning bylaw. Other members, you know, from those various boards and committees may have ideas also. I know, you know, and there's nothing set in stone yet as to what changes might be made. There's been no decisions made or anything like that. There's just been initial discussions when the Finance Committee met with Mark. So it could be the part, you know, we could be talking about definitions. We could be talking about the sign bylaw. We may be talking about, fifth generation Wi-Fi, and anything, you know, so there'll be a number of topics on the table. And so I think someone who's interested in this should be on it. I mean, if you're not interested, it's not, you know, you're going to show your disinterest at the meetings, and that's not going to be helpful. Because I think everybody who's going to be on that committee needs to be able to contribute.
In all candor, while I fiercely agree that Finance Committee was not the place for all of those discussions to happen, they were fascinating, and Bobrowski made some great points, and it really comes down to, you know, I think there's a series of really important decisions that we need to make as a community about what our planning and zoning is going to look like. So it was a fascinating initial series of discussions. So I wanted to open up to the group, anybody who is who'd like to serve on that committee. Anybody have any strong opinions?
Charlie, would you say the meeting commitment would be for that? I know you said a lot of.
Well, at least I'm hoping we're going to have at least 5 sessions with Mark. There may be other sessions for the committee itself to meet without Mark. And those sessions I'm hoping are going to be in the next 2 or 3 months, because as much as May is still several months away, we have, you know, we go to press in March. We'll probably, the planning board has to have a necessary public hearing before, when, you know, at some point. So, you know, around the turn of the year, you know, maybe in January, my hope is that there'll be a set of recommendations from the zoning bylaw committee to bring back not only to the planning board in terms of holding the public hearing, but to the town at large.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Tom. I thought it was pretty interesting, even though, yeah, I was also questioning why there weren't more departments from the town or committees from the town in on those meetings. If the meetings were evening meetings like these are, I would be interested in.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah.
If no others, then I propose we nominate John Smalling to represent the Finance Committee at the rewrite, through the rewrite process. Do we need a vote? So do we need a vote on this, Charlie?
Yes, please.
So a roll call vote to nominate John Smalling to this zoning committee meeting. I'll seconded it. Mike Bennett?
Yes.
Mike O'Brien?
Yes.
Todd Dargy?
Yes.
Cheryl Jarella Burke?
Yes.
John?
I guess I'll go with yes.
All right, good. And myself, Tom Connolly, is a yes. So it carries. John will serve on that committee on our behalf.
John, I'll get some information out to you either tonight or tomorrow.
Great, thanks. Appreciate it.
Linda, any other public any correspondence? You're on mute. You're on mute, Linda.
Linda, you're muted.
Sorry. So I was just saying, only other than your many, many job descriptions that you got, the only other real correspondence I wanted to make sure that you're aware of was the one I forwarded it from the town clerk's office, just asking a few of you to make sure and handle the ethics training for this year. So if you can get that done, that would be great. That was the only other correspondence I had other than what you've seen already or talked about already.
And is there anything to sign?
Only if you were on the list. There was a list there within the email from the town clerk on what she needed to do, but most of you had already done it, but there were a few.
And Sandy doesn't need, Sandy, you don't need anything signed? I'm good.
Do we have any payrolls that need to be signed, Linda?
Probably,
Maybe.
probably the last
Yes.
one, maybe.
Yes,
Okay, I'll come by tomorrow.
great.
Thank you. Any public participation? Any other matters? Then could I entertain a motion to adjourn at 6:47 on October 4th?
Motion
So
to adjourn.
moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Mike Bennett,
Yes.
Michael O'Brien,
Yes.
John Smalling,
Yes.
Cheryl Zerla-Burke,
Yes.
Todd Dargy,
Yes.
myself is a yes, Tom Connolly. So that carries. Oh, and our next meeting will be 2 weeks hence, right? Next week is a holiday.
19, yes.
So a week, 2 weeks from now at 6 p.m. will be our next meeting. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you then.
Thank
See
you.
ya.
Good night.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.